At a friend's birthday party, Adrian Vance brought the young woman he was keeping. The young woman looked at me, her tone innocent and lively. Adrian told me that your Americano is simply the best. Claire, will I be lucky enough to try it today? Adrian gestured towards me with his chin, ordering, "What are you standing there for? Go make the coffee." I got up and walked out of the banquet hall, and I never went back. The birthday party was held at our friend's private villa. Originally, Adrian had told me that he would pick me up after he got home from the office, and we would go to the party together, but in the evening, he called and said he'd have the driver take me instead. He didn't explain why he had suddenly changed his plans, and I didn't ask. Our relationship had always been this way. He never had to explain his actions to me. However, the moment I stepped into the banquet hall, I felt the subtle glances from all around, speculative, gossiping, and pitying. Soon enough, I understood why. I saw Adrian chatting with the host, and beside him, a beautiful girl was clinging intimately to his arm. A sharp pain pierced my heart, spreading like 1,000 tiny needles throughout my body. Only then did I understand why Adrian had stood me up. He didn't pick me up because he was bringing someone else. I didn't understand. Since he had chosen to bring his young lover to the party, why did he still want me to come? Did he have to humiliate me so publicly? I stood there, frozen, for a long time, perhaps sensing my gaze. Adrian turned. When he saw me, there was no trace of guilt on his face. Instead, he greeted me casually, even giving me a nod. "You're here." The host, on the other hand, was incredibly awkward. The smile on his face strained. "Claire, you're here. Please, make yourself at home." The young woman still holding Adrian's arm blinked as she looked at me, as if she understood something. She was truly beautiful, young and fresh, and even her voice sounded innocent and lively. "Adrian told me that your Americano is simply the best. Claire, will I be lucky enough to try it today?" My heart clenched, my nails digging unconsciously into my palms. Adrian's expression was indifferent as he turned to the person next to him. "Do you have a coffee machine?" The host's breathing quickened. He glanced at me, wiped the sweat from his brow, and said through gritted teeth, "Yes, in the pantry on the side." Adrian gestured towards me with his chin. "What are you standing there for? Go make the coffee." In an instant, the once lively hall fell deathly silent. Everyone lowered their heads, stealing glances at me from the corners of their eyes. I fought back the overwhelming shame and looked at Adrian. Our eyes met, and I saw the mocking glint in his. I paused for a moment, then turned and walked towards the side of the hall. "Hurry up," Adrian added. I didn't say a word, nor did my steps falter. I didn't go to the pantry to make coffee. I had been to this friend's house once before with Adrian, so I had a general idea of the layout. I walked through the pantry, opened the back door, and stepped into the rear garden. Following a winding, secluded path, I exited the villa through a side gate in the garden. The driver who brought me had already left. I called a car using a ride-sharing app. After accepting the ride, the driver called me. He said he had been here before and that this residential area didn't allow outside vehicles. He asked if I could wait for him at the main gate. I said I could. This villa complex was huge. After walking for a while, my feet, clad in thin high heels, began to ache. I took off my shoes and carried them in my hand, walking forward barefoot. The small pebbles on the ground occasionally pressed into the soles of my feet, sending small, sharp pains, but my steps felt light, and as I walked, I even broke into a small jog. The scenery beside me receded, like scenes from the past, moving farther and farther away from me. I felt as if the shackles that had bound me were slowly falling away. I felt lighter and freer with every step. By the time I reached the main gate, I was barefoot, my hair was a mess, and I looked completely disheveled. But when I saw the car waiting there, a smile spread across my face. The car's headlights were bright, almost blinding, but they dispelled the dark clouds that had surrounded me for years. In the deep night, I suddenly felt a sense of clarity. Everything seemed bright. As soon as I got home, Adrian's call came. "1 cup of coffee. How long are you going to take?" "I never agreed to make you coffee," I replied calmly. "And besides, I'm already home." Adrian let out an angry laugh. "Getting bold, are we, Claire?" I couldn't be bothered to argue. I hung up the phone. Back in the bedroom, I began to pack my things. The Vance family villa was enormous, with more than a dozen rooms, but the space that belonged to me consisted of only half a bed and a single section of the closet. Aside from the glamorous gowns Adrian had prepared for me for parties, I had very few clothes of my own. It took just over an hour to pack everything into one large and one small suitcase. That night, Adrian didn't come back, nor did he call again. The next day was Sunday, the day I was supposed to see Noah. I went downstairs early in the morning and waited in the living room. By 9 o'clock, my mother-in-law still hadn't brought Noah over. I called the old family residence. A servant stammered, "Mr. Vance came by this morning. He said he was taking the young master to the amusement park." I hung up the phone with a bitter smile. This was Adrian's punishment for my disobedience yesterday. He always knew how to control me. Noah was the child I had endured a difficult labor to bring into the world. He was the most important person to me. I only got to see him one day a week, and I cherished that time. But if I did anything to displease Adrian in the slightest, he wouldn't let me see Noah. Not until I bowed my head and submitted. I took a deep breath, braced myself, and dialed Adrian's number. It rang twice before he hung up. I tried again, but his phone was already off. I thought for a moment and, on a whim, tried calling Noah's smartwatch. To my surprise, it connected. "Hello, Mommy," a tender voice chirped. My heart melted. I asked softly, "Noah, when are you coming back?" "Mommy is waiting for you at the old house." "I don't want to go back. I want to ride the carousel," the child retorted. I said gently, "But we haven't seen each other all week. Mommy misses you so much." "Don't you miss Mommy?" "No," he answered without hesitation. "It's okay. You go play then. Mommy will wait for you." "I'm not going back. Daddy said he's taking me to sleep in a tent and see fireflies tonight." With that, he abruptly hung up. I sighed and left with my suitcases. Originally, I had wanted to see Noah one last time before I left, but it seemed he didn't want to see me at all. Ultimately, our mother-son bond was a shallow one. After all, in that case, there was nothing and no one left in the Vance family for me to miss. That was for the best. I could leave without any attachments. To outsiders, I was Adrian Vance's lawfully wedded wife. We had a grand wedding, but only the Vance family and I knew that. Strictly speaking, Adrian and I were not a real couple, because we never got a marriage certificate. Years ago, when my grandmother was critically ill, she was worried about me. Still in college, she used a past favor my grandfather had done for the Vance family to demand that the eldest Vance son marry me. At the time, Mr. Vance, concerned about the family's reputation, gritted his teeth and agreed. My grandmother, afraid they would back out, insisted that we get married and hold the ceremony as soon as I graduated. I had told my grandmother that I didn't need to marry him, that I could manage just fine on my own, but she believed that after she was gone, I would be all alone in the world, without a single family member, which was a pitiful state to be in. She became obsessed with the idea of me marrying into the Vance family, and no amount of persuasion worked. "Claire, if I don't see you settled, I won't be able to rest in peace," she said, her tone firm. I was helpless. In truth, the Vance family looked down on me. Before the wedding, Adrian's mother, my future mother-in-law, met with me privately and made a request. She said we could only get the marriage certificate after I'd given birth to a child. I thought about it and agreed. At the time, I felt the marriage was just to give my grandmother peace of mind. Not getting a certificate seemed fine. "It's best not to tell your grandmother about this. She's very ill and can't handle any shocks," Mrs. Vance warned, her tone threatening. I thought it would be a simple marriage of convenience. If it made my grandmother happy, it was worth it. Once she passed away, I could leave freely, but I never predicted that I would fall in love with Adrian. In the first year of our marriage, he was incredibly good to me. As a recent graduate looking for a job, Adrian arranged a position for me in the general manager's office at the Vance Group. Every morning, he drove me to work. After work, he would wait for me, and we would leave together. In front of our colleagues, he would gently hold my hand as we left. People in the office whispered that I must have saved the galaxy in a past life to marry such a high-quality and devoted man like Mr. Vance. During that time, Adrian handled all of my grandmother's hospital arrangements. Once, when my grandmother's condition worsened and she was moved to the ICU, he stayed with me at the hospital all night, constantly comforting me. Furthermore, Adrian himself was a capable and powerful man, working in the same company. I saw his decisive and commanding presence when he handled business. People are naturally drawn to strength. Living day in and day out with such an exceptional person, it was hard not to fall for him. The moment I found out I was pregnant, I was overjoyed. I immediately shared the good news with Adrian. I could see he was happy too. However, his next suggestion was for me to quit my job and rest at home. I have a gentle nature and am not good at arguing or resisting. Combined with my admiration for him, I subconsciously agreed. "By the way, Adrian, when should we get our marriage certificate? The baby will need a birth certificate when he's born," I asked. Looking at him, he stared at me for a few seconds, his expression unreadable. After a long pause, he said flatly, We'll talk about it later. Watching his retreating back, a strong sense of unease washed over me. Something felt wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. My intuition was right. Throughout my pregnancy, Adrian grew increasingly cold. In the later stages, he often stayed out all night. During childbirth, I had a difficult labor and was in pain for an entire night. He only arrived at the hospital at dawn, just before the baby was born. Shortly after I finished my month of postpartum confinement, my grandmother passed away. I always felt she had been holding on, waiting to see me have the baby, believing my future was secure before she could finally let go. I was heartbroken, coupled with the physical toll of the difficult birth. I was incredibly weak. Mrs. Vance used the excuse that I couldn't care for the baby and forcefully took him away. I cried and begged Adrian to bring our child back, but he just said coldly that I needed to focus on getting better. At that time, my heart felt like it had turned to ash. I thought about leaving, but I couldn't bear to part with my child. He was the child I had fought so hard to bring into the world. Sunday was the day I looked forward to the most, because I could see him, looking at my baby's tender face and watery eyes. The sense of fulfillment could overcome all the negative emotions. For the sake of our child, I once again brought up getting the marriage certificate. He looked at me with a condescending sneer. I thought you had more backbone. Turns out you're just like your social climbing grandmother. I clenched my fists, trembling with anger. What do you mean? I, Adrian Vance, am not a man who can be coerced. When your grandmother forced me into this marriage to repay a debt, I swore to myself that one day I would make you both regret it. I looked at him in despair. So, all that in the past, it was all fake. All of it your thoughtfulness, your loving gazes, was it all a lie? Adrian's lips curled into a thin, cruel smile. What do you think? After leaving the Vance residence, I didn't know where to go. In this world, I no longer had any other family. Just as my grandmother had feared, I was all alone. But, somehow, that didn't seem so bad. I didn't feel lonely or afraid. I could be fine on my own. I couldn't think of anywhere to go, so I stopped thinking. I checked into a hotel and spent my days watching TV, scrolling through my phone, eating, and sleeping. I didn't have to wake up early to make hand-ground coffee for Adrian. I didn't have to worry about Mrs. Vance calling out of the blue to scold me for some ridiculous reason. I didn't have to spend my days studying parenting books that I never got to use. I could lie in bed all day, my mind empty, not thinking about anything. One day, bored, I turned on the TV and saw a drama filmed in a beautiful town in Yunnan province. The scenery was breathtaking and deeply captivated me. I immediately jumped out of bed and booked a flight to Yunnan for the next morning. While waiting at the airport, I received a call from the Vance family's housekeeper. Ma'am, I'll be bringing the young master over shortly. Please be at home to wait for him. Only then did I remember that it was already Sunday. I had spent a whole week in the hotel without realizing it, and it seemed the family residents had no idea I hadn't been home all week. Hearing the boarding call for my flight, I said hurriedly, "Don't come over. I'm not home." Then I hung up. As soon as I boarded the plane, my phone rang again. I answered, and Noah's young but furious voice came through. "Bad mommy, you won't see me, so I don't want you anymore. Daddy said you're not allowed to come home." Humph. Before I could react, the call was disconnected again. I was stunned for a long moment, then smiled helplessly. 4 years, I had forced myself to stay with the Vance family because I couldn't bear to be without Noah, to see my child. I had humbled myself before Adrian, carefully trying to please him. Back then, a simple frown from him would send my heart into a panic. I was terrified that if he got angry, he wouldn't let me see Noah. Like all self-deceiving mothers, I wanted to maintain the facade of a complete family for my child's sake. This self-sacrificing notion was quite laughable, because my child didn't need it. Noah was raised at the family estate, and we only saw each other once a week. Even though I did my best to entertain and accompany him during our meetings, I felt a growing sense of powerlessness as he became more and more of a stranger to me. For him, our Sunday get-togethers were just a task to be completed. By the afternoon, he would be clamoring to go back. I had to admit, it seemed Noah really didn't need me as his mother. He didn't like me either. So, I would grant him his wish. I would no longer bother him with my presence. The town was even more beautiful than it had appeared on TV. I rented a room in a guest house and spent my days strolling around, admiring the scenery, and savoring the local cuisine. It was bliss. The pure air here seemed to truly cleanse the soul. I couldn't help but settle down and begin to think about my life and my future. My life so far had been very passive. Passively accepting my parents' deaths, passively obeying my grandmother, passively maintaining a marriage for my child. It seemed I had never actively done anything for myself. I decided that from now on, I would live for myself. Leaning on the windowsill of the guest house, gazing at the clear blue sky, I started to think about what I wanted to do. Dreams. I used to have them. Right. Not some grand ambition. I've never been ambitious. Never dreamed of making a fortune or becoming famous. I just wanted to live a simple, quiet life. In college, I used to dream of opening my own bookstore one day. A place for like-minded friends to relax and gather. It wouldn't matter if it didn't make money, because, as it turns out, I'm not exactly short on money. My grandmother left me a sum of money when she passed away. As per her request, I sold the house she owned after her death. Although it wasn't large, a property in the capital city was still worth a fair amount. That money sat untouched in my bank account. When we married, the Vance family gave me a dowry of $1 million, plus several sets of jewelry. I never touched any of it. After the marriage, Adrian gave me a monthly allowance of $30,000 for household expenses, but my monthly spending never exceeded $2,000. This was because the Vance family's housekeeper and servants took care of everything, from Noah's needs to all household expenses. I never had to worry about it. There was simply nothing for me to spend money on. My biggest expense was usually toys and gifts for Noah. Once, Adrian's cousin found out about my monthly allowance and scoffed. "So that's how my cousin humiliates you. It seems he really doesn't like you. No wonder he just gave you $1 million and called it a day." To them, $30,000 a month was an insult, and $1 million dowry was a dismissal. Perhaps I really wasn't cut out for the world of the wealthy. The young ladies and wealthy wives in their circle could easily spend tens of thousands on a handbag or a trip to the spa. Wedding dowries and betrothal gifts often included commercial buildings, shops, real estate, and shares. Compared to that, $1 million did seem rather insignificant. My spending habits and lifestyle were seen as petty and unsophisticated by them. I never paid it much mind. I was only there for my child, not to integrate into their circle. The money I had might not be much to them, but given my modest desires and spending habits, it would probably last me a lifetime. Now, I had the means to realize my dream of opening a bookstore. Before leaving the town, I called Adrian. The phone rang until the very last second, just before it would have disconnected automatically. When he finally answered, "Admit you were wrong." Before I could speak, he continued on his own. "You took things a bit too far this time. As punishment, you can't see Noah for 3 months. Adrian," I interrupted him, "we never got a marriage certificate." He seemed to chuckle, sounding pleased. "So you're that eager to make it official. It's not impossible, but not right now. You made a mistake, so I'm not considering it for the time being. Chloe is still upset about what happened. If you come back and apologize to her, maybe it'll—" I racked my brain, trying to remember who Chloe was. "Oh, the girl who asked me to make her coffee. Adrian's young lover. Are you listening to me?" he asked, his voice rising as I remained silent. I said flatly, "Since we're not legally married, we don't need to go through a divorce to separate." The voice on the other end fell silent. After a long moment, he spoke, his voice laced with anger. "What do you mean, Adrian? Let's break up. Do you know what you're saying? Yes, we don't need to see each other again. I'll keep the $1 million you gave me for the wedding as compensation for giving birth to Noah." "Fine, very fine." He seemed to laugh in fury. "You'll never see Noah again." Staring at the disconnected call, I managed a weary smile. The child I had gone through so much to bear had become his tool to control and threaten me. For Noah's sake, I had compromised and endured, humbling myself time and again, and just as he wished, my son was not close to me. He didn't like me at all. This was the main reason I could finally leave so decisively. I returned to a small county town in the south. It was where I had lived as a child, before my parents passed away. The 3 of us lived here. My mother grew up in the capital, and when she wanted to marry and move here, my grandmother was initially against it. Later, won over by my father's character, my grandmother entrusted my mother to him. My mother used to say that although she grew up in the capital, she disliked the dry air. She loved this small southern town, warm and humid, which made her feel comfortable. I thought, I truly am my mother's child. I feel the same way. Even though I later moved to the capital and lived there for many years, I never got used to it. At my core, I still loved the small town where I was born. When I wanted to find a place to settle down, this was the first place that came to mind. The house I lived in as a child had been sold long ago. After much searching, I chose a house with a courtyard in the old part of town. The front part of the courtyard had a room facing the street, which used to be a shop. I converted this room into a bookstore. The rooms behind the courtyard were renovated into my living quarters. A living room, bedroom, kitchen, dining room, and bathroom. It had everything. In the courtyard, I planted all sorts of flowers and plants. The finished home was just as beautiful as I had imagined. On a bright, sunny day, I moved in and held a small opening ceremony for the bookstore. Just as I had imagined, the bookstore wasn't very busy. Occasionally, students from nearby would come in to read, but most of the time, it was empty. That was fine by me. It was quiet, and I could sit behind the counter and focus on writing my novel. I had a passion for writing in college. From time to time, I would get short stories published in magazines. I even wrote a novella online once, which was well received, gained some readers, and earned me a decent sum. In college, my plan was to work for a magazine or publishing house after graduation, and write novels in my spare time. But as soon as I graduated, at Adrian's request, I joined his company. Getting married, having a child, I eventually let my writing fall by the wayside. Now, I wanted to slowly nurture this hobby again, doing what I love, living a good life. That was my plan for the future. One day, I was at the shop, typing away, when it suddenly started to pour rain outside. Rain hammered against the window panes. Soon, a large puddle formed by the entrance. A tall, slender young man on a shared bike quickly parked it by the bookstore, jumped off, and rushed over. He grabbed something from the bike basket and clutched it to his chest. "Ma'am, can I take shelter from the rain here?" He stood under the eaves, wiping the object in his hands, and called out to me. "Of course, come on in," I said with a smile. "No, it's okay. I'm soaked. I don't want to get your floor dirty." He looked up, wiping his forehead with his sleeve, and froze the moment he saw me. I saw his face clearly too and couldn't help but think he was quite handsome. Not the fair, delicate type of handsome, but a tanned complexion, sharp features, strong brows, and bright eyes, a very masculine kind of handsome. A few seconds passed before he seemed to come back to his senses. He looked pleasantly surprised. "Claire, when did you get back?" "You know me?" I asked, surprised. I was sure I didn't know this tall, handsome young man. He grinned, revealing a set of white teeth. "I'm Ethan." "Ethan," I frowned, thinking for a moment, but still couldn't recall. 17 years ago. The fire at the downtown mall. Your father saved me. And then his words suddenly transported me back in time. Before I was 10, I had a happy family. My parents were in love, and they both doted on me. But when I was 10, it all vanished like a soap bubble. My father was a firefighter. When a fire broke out at the downtown mall, he and his colleagues went in to rescue people. Fortunately, everyone in the mall was saved that day. But my father, along with another firefighter, sacrificed their lives in that fire. Not long after my father's funeral, my mother, distracted by grief, was hit by a truck while riding her electric bike and died on the spot. In an instant, I became an orphan. Later, my grandmother came and took me to live in the capital. Not long after I moved in with her, my grandfather also passed away. I was consumed by a deep sense of self-blame. I wondered if I was one of those people from TV shows who were cursed, bringing misfortune to their loved ones. First my parents, then my grandfather. This self-loathing made me insecure, timid, and melancholic. Although my grandmother noticed something was wrong and took me to see a psychologist, the cowardice had already taken deep root in me. "I'm sorry." Ethan's voice pulled me back from my memories. "If it wasn't for saving us, Uncle, it's okay." That was his duty, I said sincerely. There was a time when I had harbored resentment. Why did Dad have to save those people? Why did he have to leave me and Mom? Mom's accident was due to her overwhelming grief. Couldn't he have valued his own life for our sakes? But as I grew older and my thinking matured, I came to terms with it and made peace with myself. I began to understand my father. His character and sense of responsibility drove him to give his all in his work. These were the qualities my mother had loved in him. That's just who he was. He was proud of his job and spoke of it with pride. So, I no longer blame him. I, too, should be proud of his work. "Oh, right. Look at this. Do you remember it?" Ethan held up a small ceramic flower pot. "This is." I took the pot in surprise. Mine. The familiar pot brought back memories. My dad had taken me to a pottery studio to make this when I was a child. On the bottom, my own name, Claire, was written in my clumsy handwriting. Later, I think I took it home and planted a cactus in it. If I hadn't seen it again, I would have almost forgotten about it. "How did you get this?" I asked curiously, turning the small pot over in my hands. Ethan smiled. "Actually, I went to your house later, but you had already moved." As he spoke, I learned the full story. After being rescued from the mall by that tall firefighter, he was still conscious. Although the firefighter wore a mask and he couldn't see his face, he heard someone nearby call out his name. After he recovered, he and his parents went to the fire station to present a banner to the man who saved him, but they learned that the firefighter had died shortly after rescuing him. His whole family was devastated. Later, they heard that the firefighter's wife had also passed away in an accident, leaving behind a 10-year-old daughter. His parents decided they wanted to adopt the girl. They even decorated a room for her in pink and pastel yellow, colors a little girl would like. He was happily thinking about having a little sister. Unfortunately, they were a step too late. They never even got to meet the girl before she was taken away by her grandmother. He was very disappointed and even went to the firefighter's house and cried at the doorstep. It was there, at the house, that he saw the small flower pot in a corner, with a tiny cactus inside. The name Claire was on the bottom. He knew it was the little sister's name, so he took the pot home. I had never taken care of a plant before. I tried my best with that cactus, but it died in less than a week. Ethan looked a bit embarrassed as he said this. I chuckled. Did you water it every day? How did you know? He laughed too. I found out later that you're not supposed to water a cactus every day, because when I first started, I watered them every day too and killed several. The one you found was the one I managed to keep alive the longest. Oh, how long was that? A whole 51 days, I said proudly. We both laughed. By the way, why did you bring the pot out? I asked. He pointed to a corner of the pot. See, it's cracked here. My cat knocked it over. I searched for a long time before I found a place that repairs ceramics. I just got it fixed today. I was amused. It's just a broken pot. Why bother fixing it? He held the pot carefully. It's worth it. Ethan and I gradually became close. He would come to my bookstore right after work, eagerly helping me with customers and cleaning. Every time he came in, he would say, "The great author can now write in peace. Leave the shop to me." I was surprised when I learned he was a firefighter. Ever since I was rescued, my dream was to become a firefighter when I grew up. I'm lucky I achieved it. He spoke about his profession with pride. His tone was much like my father's. Congratulations, I said, genuinely happy for him. After we got to know each other better, Ethan cautiously asked me why I had returned to my hometown. He scratched his head. Actually, I've seen you before. I knew you were married. I went to college in the capital. After graduation, I went back once for a classmate's wedding and happened to see you at a mall. I didn't know what you looked like, but as we passed each other, I heard someone next to you call you Claire. That name is etched in my mind. I turned around sharply and saw you. I wasn't sure at the time, but I did some asking around and found out you were my rescuer's daughter. You were about to get married then. Your wedding was grand. I snuck in to watch. You were smiling so sweetly. Claire, what happened? Why did you come back here to live alone? Ethan's voice was gentle, as if he was afraid of hurting me, and the concern on his face was sincere. It's okay if you don't want to talk about it. I got divorced, I said calmly. To be precise, we broke up. We had a child, but we were never legally married. 4 years. I had gotten used to processing my emotions alone, burying all my troubles deep inside. I thought I had lost the ability to share, but in front of someone who genuinely cared, I found my desire to share was surprisingly strong. I calmly recounted all the experiences of the past few years. As I spoke, my tone was peaceful, and I could even laugh at myself, but Ethan was moved to tears. I looked at him, amused. What are you crying for? How could they bear to hurt you like that? He said, another tear rolling down his cheek. Claire, you've suffered so much. In his eyes, I saw a long-forgotten emotion, an emotion I had once seen in the eyes of my parents and grandparents. Compassion. He felt for me. After so many years, I once again felt what it was like to be cared for so deeply. A warmth spread through my heart. Some feelings between adults are unspoken. I began to silently accept Ethan's care and attention, because I found that being with him was comfortable, without any unease or resistance. He observed my habits and preferences in the smallest details, knowing me better than I knew myself. Once, we went to a night market for barbecue. I didn't touch the squid skewers, and he realized I didn't eat squid. After that, whenever we ate out, he never ordered anything with squid. When he ordered milk tea for me, I mentioned once that I wanted it with 30 sugar, and he remembered. Every time after that, my milk tea was always 30 sugar. He seemed rough on the outside, but he was incredibly considerate, like a glass of warm water, quietly nourishing, making you feel completely at ease. Over time, I grew dependent on him. One evening, it was time for Ethan to get off work, but he didn't show up at the bookstore as usual. An hour later, he still hadn't arrived, and I started to panic. Forgetting all pretense of composure, I quickly called him, but there was no answer. I was getting frantic. I searched the local news and found out there was a fire at a factory in the western suburbs. I immediately hailed a taxi and rushed there. By the time I arrived, the fire had been extinguished. I scanned the firefighters coming out of the factory but couldn't find Ethan. My heart began to pound uncontrollably, and my hands started to shake. The image of my father leaving 17 years ago flashed in my mind. I shook my head, muttering, "No, it can't be." Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared in front of me. "Claire, what are you doing here?" In that moment, all my emotions rushed out. I burst into tears and threw myself into his arms. "You scared me to death, Ethan. I thought something happened to you." "Shoo, don't cry. I'm fine. See," he spoke softly, gently patting my back to comfort me. When I had calmed down, he cupped my face and looked into my eyes. "The way you looked just now, can I take that to mean you care about me a lot?" I didn't want to hesitate any longer. I nodded without a second thought. "Yes, I care about you, a lot. When I can't see you, I worry, my mind races. Claire, let's be together." His eyes sparkled, like they held stars. Okay. After the emotional roller coaster I had just been through, I thought, nothing is more important than cherishing the present. I didn't want to overthink things anymore. I just wanted to follow my heart and be happy for once. 3 months after getting together with Ethan, we got our marriage license. As we walked out of the city hall, Ethan held me tightly. "Claire, don't be afraid. From now on, you have a home. I'm your family, and I'll never leave you." Tears streamed down my face. He had always understood me. He knew my inner turmoil, my longing for a home, the missing piece of my heart, back home. Ethan started cooking. He served steak and red wine, so formal. I raised an eyebrow. "Of course, this is a big day. We just got married. We have to celebrate properly." He sat down across from me. "My parents are still on vacation, but I called and told them we got married. They're thrilled. They also said that when they get back, they'll start planning the wedding. They promised not to let you feel wronged in any way." I saved up some money over the past couple of years, and with my parents' help, I bought a small apartment as our future home. It's the one you saw before. It's not big, but we paid for it in full, so no mortgage to worry about. I'm planning to start renovating this month. If you have any ideas, any style you like, you can tell me. I smiled. "Let's eat first. We can talk about everything else later." "No," he said seriously, "starting today, we're husband and wife. I need to be completely open with you about everything. Now, there's just one last thing." He took a card out of his pocket and handed it to me. "This is my salary card." I quickly shook my head. No. If I take it, what will you do for money?" "You can give me an allowance. I like you being in charge." He insisted on putting the card in my hand. As we were going back and forth, the doorbell rang. I immediately shot up and ran to open the door. Seeing the father and son standing outside, I froze. "Mommy." Noah hugged my leg. Looking up at me, I stroked his head. "What are you two doing here?" Adrian didn't answer my question and walked straight into the house. Seeing Ethan sitting in the dining room, his face darkened as he looked at me. "Who is he?" Before I could answer, he glanced around and continued, "After leaving me, you're content to live in a small place like this." I looked around, puzzled. What was wrong with this house? It couldn't compare to the Vance family's mansion, but it was spacious, bright, and cozy. "It's lovely here, better than the Vance estate," I said honestly. "No need to be stubborn." Adrian's smile was condescending. "When you were with me, you had servants waiting on you. You didn't have to lift a finger, and everything you ate and used was of the finest quality. How could you possibly adapt to such a crude lifestyle?" I admit I embarrassed you for another woman. It's understandable that you're angry, and I won't hold it against you. I've already sent Chloe away, and I came here personally to get you. You'd better stop playing hard to get. This is your last chance. I know you've always wanted to get the certificate. From now on, that won't be necessary." I cut him off, tired of his condescending attitude. "I'm not going back with you. This is my home, and I'm married now. Please don't bother me again." Adrian's composure finally cracked. He stared at me, his pupils dilated in shock. "What did you say?" Ethan walked over, took my hand, his expression calm. "Sir, today is a very happy day for Claire and me, so we'll overlook your nonsense. Please leave our home immediately." A flicker of confusion crossed Adrian's eyes. "What happy day? We got our marriage license today. We are legally married. So, Adrian, please go. I'm never going back to the capital." After a long stunned silence, Adrian finally spoke. "This joke isn't funny." "I'm not joking, Adrian. I'm married." Noah suddenly rushed over, hugging my leg, his eyes filled with tears. "Mommy, Don't you want me anymore? I knelt, my voice as gentle as possible. Noah, even though mommy isn't with you anymore, I will always love you. If you miss me, we can video chat. And when you have holidays, you can come visit me. Although Noah and I were never close, and he had said hurtful things to me in the past, I never blamed him. He was only 3 years old. What did he know? He had been separated from me since birth, only seeing me once a week. There was no time to build a bond. It was perfectly normal for him not to be close to me. Perhaps our mother-son connection was just fated to be weak. Noah looked at me and nodded, as if he understood. The day before the wedding, Adrian came to find me again. He stood at the entrance of the bookstore, his expression grim. I need to talk to you. Ethan, who was sitting nearby, stood up. You two talk. I'll go for a walk. After Ethan left, Adrian turned to look at me. I admit it. You win. Divorce him. And we'll get our marriage license immediately. What nonsense are you talking about? You married another man out of spite, didn't you? Just to force me to back down. Aren't you being a little full of yourself? Adrian chuckled. What else could it be? In what way is this man you found better than me? Claire, the person you love is me. I can read it in your eyes. I looked quietly at the confident man before me for a long time, then suddenly smiled. So, he had always known I loved him, but because he was forced into the marriage, he couldn't swallow his pride and resorted to psychologically tormenting me to feel balanced. Then look into my eyes now. Can you still read any love for you in them? He froze. Adrian, I admit, I used to love you, but I realized you're not worth loving. I only stayed with the Vance family because of Noah. Otherwise, I would have left long ago. Something in his eyes seemed to shatter. A clear look of pain. Impossible. You're trying to get revenge on me. Right. I admit, I've hurt you over the past few years. I apologize. If you'll come back, I'll make it up to you. I wasn't completely without feelings for you during these years. I laughed out loud. Adrian, you're such a coward. Is it so hard to admit you like me? Is liking someone like me so shameful for you? Since you look down on me, why did you force yourself to stay with me? That's not what I meant, he said, his tone urgent. Of course, even if you did admit you like me, I wouldn't go with you, because the person I love now is not you. He snapped his head up, his eyes rimmed with red. How could you possibly love him? I don't believe it. Yes, as you said, he's not your equal in many ways, but he's gentle, kind, patient, and he understands me. He has many virtues. Most importantly, as a partner, he only has eyes for me. Adrian fell silent again. Just as I thought he was about to leave, he suddenly spoke, his voice hoarse. What if I can change? I can do it too. I can have eyes only for you, and never look at another woman again. I shook my head firmly. My feelings for you have been worn away over these past few years. Claire, think about Noah. He's our son. Don't you want him to have a complete family? I'll bring Noah to live with us as soon as you come back. The three of us can be a family. Okay. Towards the end, his voice trembled slightly, but I just let out a low laugh. So, Noah could have been brought back all along. For the past few years, he knew how much I missed Noah. I had begged him countless times to bring our son back, and he had cruelly refused every time. Now he was saying the three of us could live together. How ridiculous. I looked up, my gaze steady. From the moment Noah was born, you've used him to control me. From now on, he can no longer be a tool for you to threaten me, because I've learned to love myself. From now on, I will always put myself first. No one will ever hurt me again. Adrian left, looking utterly defeated. Ethan rushed in, his steps hurried, and pulled me into a frantic hug. I struggled. Your arms are hurting me. He loosened his grip slightly but didn't let go. I'm sorry, Claire. I was just so scared. Scared of what? Scared you would go with him. Scared you would leave me. I cupped his face and smiled. Silly. I'm your wife. Why would I leave with someone else? But, you haven't told me you love. Shoo. I interrupted him. What's tomorrow? Our wedding. Then don't you want to hear my confession at the wedding? He nodded fiercely. Right. He slapped his forehead. I need to go over the wedding schedule with the officiant. Tomorrow is our big day. Nothing can go wrong. Oh no, my memory is terrible. What if I get nervous and forget my lines tomorrow? He suddenly grew anxious and paced around the room. I can't stay with you. I'm going back to prepare now. I'll pull an all-nighter if I have to. He rushed to the door, then suddenly turned back. He waved at me with a brilliant smile. Claire, wait for me to marry you tomorrow. Extra Adrian's POV. I never thought that because of a cup of coffee, Claire would leave me, and never come back. At first, I thought she was just throwing a tantrum. Claire had always been so obedient with me. When she walked out of the party that day, I was angry too. So, on Sunday, I took Noah out to play, as a punishment for her misbehavior, but she didn't come home for a whole week. Another Sunday came, and even on the day Noah was supposed to visit, she wouldn't come back. I was genuinely starting to get angry. Whenever we had a small disagreement in the past, she was always the one to compromise. I wanted to see how long she could hold out this time. That day, when the phone rang and I saw her name flashing, I almost answered immediately, but I didn't want to seem too eager. I waited until the very last second to pick up. I wanted to ask where she was, if she was okay, but the first words out of my mouth were, "Admit you were wrong." I even said, as a punishment, that she couldn't see Noah for 3 months. I was just saying it, because she had been gone for too long. I didn't want her to make a habit of running away. She had to pay a small price so she wouldn't dare to leave so easily again. When I heard her say, "We never got a marriage certificate," a smile involuntarily touched my lips. So that's what this was all about, getting the certificate. It was bound to happen eventually. I was deliberately not agreeing just to tease her. Perhaps Claire had spoiled me. I was used to her giving in, used to being the one in charge. I desperately wanted her back, but I stubbornly told her to apologize to Chloe. When I heard her cold voice say, "Let's break up," my head started buzzing. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had always thought Claire's talk of leaving was just an empty threat. After all, Noah was here. How could she bear to leave him? I had seen with my own eyes how much she loved her child. I thought, fine. It seems she's really angry this time. If she wants to go clear her head, then let her. Once she faces the harsh realities of the outside world, she'll realize how good she had it with the Vance family. After being so pampered by me for years, she wouldn't be able to handle a rough life. But she was gone for months, without a word. She didn't even call Noah once. I started to panic. I had people look for her. My assistant sent me her address, and I rushed over with Noah on the next flight. I didn't even bother to read the other information my assistant sent along with it. The moment I found out she was married was like a blow to the head. I couldn't recover for a long time. I couldn't believe it. How could she marry someone else? Did she not want me, or Noah, anymore? The day before her wedding, I went to find her. I wanted to make one last effort, but she said she didn't love me anymore. I could see from her eyes that she had truly moved on. I had lost her forever. On her wedding day, I watched from a distance. She held a microphone and confessed to the groom, "I love you." I was deeply jealous. She had never told me she loved me. In that moment, her smile was so radiant, her eyes brimming with happiness, but my heart was breaking. Her happiness was not given by me. Sometimes I wonder, when did I fall in love with Claire? Perhaps, I fell in love the first time I saw her. We were having a meal together. Her smile was timid, her eyes as pure and innocent as a fawn's, so beautiful and lovely. It made you want to like her, to possess her. It was only later that I understood. Marrying Claire wasn't entirely because I was forced. With my personality, if I didn't want to do something, no one could make me. I agreed to the marriage because, deep down, I had already accepted her, but I couldn't see it at the time. I was angry that my marriage was being manipulated, used as a tool to repay a debt. A young girl like Claire, with no experience in love, was simple and easy to deceive. After we married, I was intentionally good to her, thoughtful and caring in every way, and just as I expected, I soon saw admiration and infatuation for me in her eyes. When she got pregnant, I began to distance myself from her, step by step. This was my revenge. I had never been forced to do anything in my life. Her grandmother was the first, so I could only take it out on her. After the child was born, when she brought up the marriage certificate again, I cruelly mocked her and her grandmother. When my mother took Noah away, I didn't object. At the time, she truly didn't have the energy to care for a child. She had just gone through a difficult birth, and then her grandmother passed away. She was as fragile as a piece of paper. I wanted her to rest and recover, but later, watching her grow colder and more distant, I started to panic. I couldn't stand it when her eyes no longer looked at me with adoration. I wanted to grab her face, force her to look at me. So, I did something foolish. I started using Noah to threaten her. If she didn't obey, I wouldn't let her see Noah. And it worked. She became compliant. She didn't even say a word when I found other women, but I was still unhappy. She was like a doll, letting me manipulate her, unable to resist, but her face was expressionless. I wanted some kind of emotion from her, even if it was anger. I started doing even more outrageous things to provoke her. Our marriage fell into a vicious cycle, but I was powerless to stop it. Later, I realized I was wrong from the very beginning. I regret letting my mother take Noah away. She saw him so rarely that Noah had no affection for her, because her child wasn't attached to her. She was able to leave so decisively. If Noah had been with her from birth, their bond would have been strong, and she would never have been able to abandon her child. Even for her child's sake, she wouldn't have left the Vance family. I also regret, that day, telling her to make coffee for Chloe. Because of those spiteful words, she left forever. She left with such finality, never looking back. I often regret not realizing my own feelings sooner, regret not treating her better in the past. Why did I always make her be the one to back down? Why did I push her again and again? What kind of monstrous things did I do? I was a man, yet I failed to protect her. I let her get hurt time and time again, until she finally despaired. I think I will spend the rest of my life in regret. All kinds of regrets will drown and consume me, leaving me sleepless, heartbroken. This is my punishment. That night, I had a dream. In the dream, Claire and I were at our wedding. She was wearing a beautiful wedding dress, a smile on her lips as she looked at me. I grabbed her hand and we ran off the stage. Adrian, where are we going? To get our marriage certificate, I shouted. This time, I will hold on to you tightly, and never let go.